Welcome to a new Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers, and today we have Dan Tricario here with us. I hope I've said your name correctly, Dan. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Monique.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before I introduce you, I'd just like to introduce the podcast to everybody who's tuning in. So a new paradigm of education is something that's come through since the pandemic, but it's not about the pandemic. So we've noticed over the last 2 years, education has really changed. And this is the birthing of what I believe is a new paradigm of education. I'm really inspired to connect with parents, educators, teachers, and anybody else who's concerned about creating the change makers of this world, our beautiful children, into the best that they can be. This is what this podcast is all about. It's about serving the highest good of our students. So with that in mind, I'd love to introduce you to today's guest. His name is Dan Tricario, and I hope I've said that correctly. I've said it twice now, so.
It took me a while. Don't worry about it. Took me more than 2 times to get
it. Okay, so he's been a high school teacher for nearly 30 years, an English high school teacher. And he's also the author of the Zen Teacher, Creating Focus, Simplicity, and the Tranquility in the Classroom, as well as another book, Sanctuaries, which is called Self-Care Secrets for the Stressed Out Teacher. They're both very important topics. So in his spare time, he enjoys writing, listening to music, reading mystery novels, watching movies, and staring out of windows. Okay, so one of his first loves is writing poetry, and he's published many poems, both in print and online. Wow, you've done a lot for this world. That's amazing. So I usually just start with just allowing you just to introduce yourself. Is there anything you wanted to add to my introduction, or just to let people know about yourself?
Well, I've always loved to write. And so having those books come out was a dream come true for me. So I never dreamed that, this late in my career, I would have this path where, in addition to helping my own students, I get to help teachers, because that impact, I think, is really powerful, because you're not just helping them. What they get from you goes on to help their students. And there's just this amazing ripple effect that just humbles me. And actually, that bio is a little bit old, I'm realizing, because now it's over 30 years. So I need to update my bio.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. And that just shows true passion and dedication for education. I feel like it's something, like, I know myself as an educator as well. It's something that's inside of me that I feel so connected and so resonant with, that I couldn't imagine not doing it, even if it wasn't in a classroom per se, if it was in my home or if I was in a different area. I just feel it's like kind of like a gift I bring into the world. And I feel like educators, we all have this kind of unique qualities that we all are able to bring out to help our students as well. Do you feel that as well in yourself, to be able to be in education for 30 years and to keep on going rather than, like,
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely have always felt that this was my calling and that I was meant to do it. And, it's such, and we don't have to go down this road too far, but I was telling somebody the other day that I really feel, being a spiritual person too, that this is my ministry, that this is where I can model kindness, and I can model empathy and compassion and all of the things that hopefully make us decent people. And when you've taught for 30 years and you have, you're encountering hundreds of students a day, not all of their lives are full of compassion and empathy and kindness. And it's heartbreaking. I often say, if I thought too much about what my students went through, I would quit, because it would be overwhelming. It would be too much to take. So one thing I can bring is that sense of being there, being in the moment, being, just being a stable influence for them. And that has nothing to do with my subject matter, Monique. It has nothing to do with literature, commas, or, it's just about being human. And I think that's you talked about gifts that we bring to the table, and whether it's the old paradigm or the new paradigm or whatever. I mean, I think that the good teachers that I saw anyway, or the good teachers that I had, that's what set them apart. That's what differentiated them, is they had respect for us as people, and they treated us with respect and with empathy and compassion. And so I try to do that.
That's beautiful that you've modeled that and explained that to me. And like my eyes just lit up when you said the word spirituality and teaching in one sentence. It's like
Yes.
both of my favorite
Yes.
topics. And I feel like, yeah, like being able to, my personal philosophy is being able to teach the whole child, so their body, their mind,
Yes.
and their spirit, so that
Yes.
education has been so focused on the mind, and actually we're there to support them in all aspects. And so what you're talking about is emotional connection, where you've been saying that you're connecting in with the child, and that is just so necessary. And then of course that's then going to allow them to feel more peaceful and more regulated, and the whole class to become more regulated as well. And results are also going to be coming through from that space, because
Yes.
I think it's crazy, you know, that, you know, in the old paradigm where a child is expected to learn no matter what they're doing, you know, if they need to go to the bathroom, or if they need, you know, if they need to do something else, they're distracted. It's not going to work to say, sit still. Like we need to be fluid and allow that space, and just treat them as like little human beings. What do they need, and what is going to help them and support them? So thank you for sharing that. I really love that.
Of course, you're reminding me of the old saying, Maslow before Bloom.
Okay, yeah.
Basic needs before knowledge, because you're right, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I may have been known a time or two to wait to go to the bathroom until a staff meeting, so I could kind of slip out when it got too boring. So there's that. I know that sometimes students do that, but yeah, I mean, they totally are distracted and unable to focus if they have needs that aren't met.
Yeah, and Maslow was actually a big influence in our book, A New Paradigm of Education, when I was feeling into what is it that I feel is going to be created. And I sat in meditation and just kind of sat there, and what actually came through my body was actually the chakra system. And then later I realized, wow, that's actually the same layout and the same colors and the same context as what Maslow has done. It just depends if you're focusing on the east or the west. And then I thought, what if you flip the model? What if you focused like Maslow's model the other way around? Like you're first focusing on self-actualization and then bringing it down. And if you were self-actualized, would everything already be in place? And would there be all of these constraints and conflicts and, you know, hardships that we've had to see as teachers in the world, in ourselves and in our students as well? And yeah, that was just something that came through. Thank you for sharing that with me.
No, thank you for sharing. And what you're making me think of is probably very few things in life are actual pyramids.
Exactly.
Because you said mind, body, spirit, and
it's a circle.
You can't, if you ignore those in education, you're missing 2/3 of the equation. Totally. And I had a teacher friend who's the best teacher I've ever seen in my life. And he used to say, we're not social engineers. And I was like, dude, that's the one place I disagree with you. We are totally social engineers. We have an opportunity to affect all of those areas. And I knew I'm not saying this out of vanity and saying I was ahead of the curve, but intuitively, I realized early on that relationships were the key. And that if I had a good relationship with the students, that I had, many fewer behavior problems. Classroom management wasn't a problem, because we all cared about each other and we were all respectful of each other. And it just happened. I mean, there's always issues, but you're dealing with actual live human beings. I said it's the only job where we practice on actual humans, or one of the only jobs. But yeah, I think I realized it was about relationships, and you can't ignore part of being human in a relationship. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's that's really powerful what you just shared around that aspect. I was just feeling into that as well. And I totally agree with the circular model. I, in the end, wrote in the book that it needs to be a circle, because I was like, I don't like pyramids either. I disagree. And I actually saw a circle like with everybody is the same. So we are one with the students, with the parents, with the educators, and that if there is this circular model, there is no hierarchy, and there's no need for competition. There's no need for I don't know, anxiety. There's no need for a lot of those things, because there's equality with everybody. So it was this, it came from a place of peace and love that I was creating it in, and I hope that it would make changes for people in the way that they receive the information. It's going to be different, a new paradigm for everybody. So it's going to shift people into making some kind of change, whatever that is, whether it's like, am I going to
Right.
change myself in the classroom? Am I going to change myself at home? Can I help my child? What do they need? And what I really loved about your work was I noticed that you've already started that path with your book. So what I've been looking at your book is like, well, he's actually making changes within his environment, within his classroom through this Zen teaching model. So I'd love to go through that with you, and you could just maybe help us to understand what that is and how we could use that. That would be so helpful. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, well, that's, probably 25 podcast episodes, but, I can give you a little overview and touch on some things. One of the things that you were talking about that just kind of resonated with me is that I love what you're doing, because not only are you making changes in yourself, but with a new paradigm in education, you are attempting to change the infrastructure, which really, frankly, is what is broken. And I didn't have the energy to do that, because when I wrote the Zen Teacher book, I was just heading toward massive burnout in my career. And I thought, I have 10 years till I retire. How am I going to make it through? And I started, because I just always loved to write. I was writing about different strategies that I was trying, and they helped. And, so I was lucky, fortunate enough to turn it into a book. But and then I knew, being a fairly spiritual person, that if I changed me, there would be a ripple effect, and that would, impact the students and impact the system. But I knew that at the time, I had some, challenges going on in my life, and I knew that I did not have the bandwidth to try to change the infrastructure of education across the world. So I really applaud those people like yourself who are attempting to do that and making inroads in that area. So, I was a drama major and an actor in college, and I remember the acting teachers talking about, being in the moment and doing breathing exercises and relaxation exercises. And so that impacted what I was writing about and calmed me down. I have always been fascinated with Eastern philosophy, which we just talked about. So that kind of is in there. And it's kind of like this recipe of different things that I kind of put in the pot, and I stirred it up, and it really kind of, the other piece is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's some of that in there, of specifically only, really worrying about the things that are within our circle of influence. We can't change some things, we just can't, it's not within that circle. And then his 7th habit, which is sharpening the saw, it's like, you have to work on you. You have to give yourself time for balance and peace and stillness and improvement and personal development. Otherwise, you're just running on fumes, and you're going to burn yourself out. And, so it was like I put all that stuff in the stew and mixed it up. And then the great thing about that, Monique, is now that I've got probably 3 to 4-ish years left, and I know I'm going to make it. And that's a wonderful thing, because I wasn't so sure. And now, especially, they're, these teachers are struggling so hard, and my heart goes out to them, because the education, the current, not the new paradigm, but the current education system is a mess. It's out of control. Teachers are suffering and hurting. And the pandemic both helped and didn't help in terms of us reflecting, and realizing, hey, this isn't really working so well, and I think a lot of people in a lot of professions are realizing that. So then the question becomes, what are we going to do about it? And what I love about us talking right now is I'm talking about how each individual can do things to change themselves. And you're saying, but we can change the system too. And that's a great combination.
And yes, I love that. And what I wanted to reflect back to you is that you are already one of the people that is changing the face of education. You're already part of that collective of the new paradigm.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, by you changing you, that is that is one of the key messages in in our manuscript, in our book, I
Mhm.
interviewed like eight of the different authors with my mind completely blank, not expecting any answer from them, just expecting them to share their heart, what they truly believed. And it actually
Mhm.
all came back to mindfulness. Each author said
Mhm.
it in their own kind of flavor, their own kind of way, you know, like gratitude
Sure.
or awakening or mindfulness, whatever it was. It all came back to that. And it all came back to, well, if we are regulated and we are at peace, then we are able to do so much more for our children. And then the children are going to be mirroring that back to us. And I really actually do feel
Mhm.
like that is one of the major seeds for the change of the face of education. Like if every single educator could, you know, go into school being happy, actually being happy for what they have,
Mhm.
and like truly happy, you know, and being able to take time in the classroom. I know that might sound a bit cliche, like take time, how do you do that? But it
Mhm.
can be done. Like you can weave it into, you know, into practical areas. And even if the system is not like wanting you to do that, I just think it's almost our duty of care as a teacher to do that, because we are there to help them with their health and their learning. And who are we
Mhm.
not to do that? Like, who are we not to create a peaceful classroom? That is my question, you know? And so that's why I'm
Mhm.
really grateful about what I've been reading about you doing that, because that is going to be a ripple effect for other educators, even parents. They could use this book. I was having a look at the tips in there that I mean, they're not tips, they're actual like beautifully laid out pieces of information, but
Thank
you
you.
know,
Thank you.
tips is just the easiest way to
There are
describe
tips
it.
too.
There was five major kind of pillars of your work,
Mhm.
and I just thought that
Mhm.
all of those in itself is a paradigm shift, you know, going away
Oh,
from what we've
yes.
been talking about, the mind, and
That's a
going
good
into the
point. It
body.
is.
So if you wanted to go more into that, I'd love to hear it. If you wanted to just share what those five are, just so people could hear the words even, or
Gosh, I hope we're thinking about the same five.
yeah,
Um,
the S's.
oh, the five S's. Okay.
Yeah.
Because there are the five S's, but
Ah,
then there's also I created a 5-step blueprint for the overview of the whole thing.
oh,
So let me talk
okay.
about the five S's.
Sure.
I think that's going to be the most immediately impactful for your listeners. And if anybody has heard me on, write about it, or, in Sanctuaries or whatever, it's okay, because I think these are great reminders. And again, I did them as reminders for me, but the five S's are stillness, silence, space, subtraction, and slowing down. And one thing that you just said, that I think is really important to relay to your listeners is, if you practice mindfulness in the classroom, if you practice the five S's in the classroom or in your life, people are not going to understand what you're doing. It's going to ruffle feathers. It's going to look a little subversive. At one point, what I was doing in the classroom just started to look very different than what other teachers in my school and in my department were doing. And I got some funny looks, and I got some criticisms, and I got some pushback. And I had to say, you know what? I can't worry about that. That's not in my circle of influence. I know I need to do this for my own preservation, mental health, to get through. And I've grown to accept that and be okay with that. So just quickly going through those five S's. First one is stillness. And we live in cultures that are so go, go, go all the time, hamster wheel, merry-go-round. It's a status symbol to be busy. Oh, you think you're busy? Look how busy I am. And I jumped off that hamster wheel when the book came out. And it's been a massive mindset shift. And it's been one of the most amazing things that I think I've done. And again, it looks different than other people, and they don't understand why I'm doing it or what I'm doing. And in fact, my daughter, she's very witty, and she said, "Are you sure you're not just lazy and calling it philosophy?" And I said, well, I'm sure there's a little overlap there sometimes, but stillness, just non-doing is what they call it in the Zen circles. And just taking, you said taking time for you, and making it an organic, integral part of your lifestyle, instead of just another thing that is on your plate, right? And then silence is big in spirituality, whether it's meditation or prayer or just stillness, or going out to a lake or going up into the mountains or the beach, whatever, and just being silent. We live in an incredibly noisy world. And I realized, I always say, silence is a gift we give ourselves. And I realized that, like, I love music, but I realized I was in the car a few years ago, and I realized that as much as I love music and I always have it blasting, if I turn the music off on the way to work or the store or whatever, I'm in this cocoon of silence that was just rejuvenating and recharging. And I sometimes, when I'm feeling stressed out, will learn to notice that, first of all, super important step, and then turn the radio off or whatever, and just be silent and breathe. And it's magical. So stillness, silence, space, that's the whole decluttering thing. Marie Kondo, does it give you joy? Getting rid of things that no longer serve you. And I try not to be a super woo-woo guy, but I do believe that if you purge all of the things that aren't serving you, you do open up space for the universe to give you the things that will serve you. So if you're suffocated with a bunch of junk and it could be psychic junk, it could be junk in your mind. I mean, you don't even want to see my Google Drive, because it's an abyss. It's just, I didn't know what it was when it came out. And so all kinds of things got put in there and I didn't even know it was happening. Yes. And at one point I put on my board to my students, stop sharing things with me, because I didn't know what was happening, and because I had to figure it out. So, all of this stuff that just comes at us all the time, if we can become good curators of what's serving us and what's not, then the stress is going to go down. So stillness, silence, space, and slowing down. Again, it's just such a high-paced culture that we live in that sometimes I think it's important to like sometimes like I get really like frenzied and anxious if I get behind a big semi truck on the freeway. But sometimes I've learned to kind of go, no, just be here and breathe through it, and let that trucker go slow and you go slow. And, people are behind you going, and they're going around you. I'm like, no, I'm just going to be here and just chill with it, and it's just a way of practicing the slowing down. And I also do another thing that I call margins, where if I have one task to do, like laundry or make dinner or something like that, I try to create a time buffer. You can't always do this, but try to create a time buffer on both sides so that the task takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
Because I got really tired of, okay, I got to get dinner and I got to do my laundry. 5 o'clock, I have to be at this appointment and do that thing. And, and if you can just take one task and let it take the time it takes and breathe, it's much more calming. So stillness, silence, space, subtraction, and slowing down, the 5 S's.
That's amazing. They're all very, very useful and practical and necessary. None of that is woo-woo. It's all actually necessary. Like people who are not doing that, I don't know what they're doing, because
they make it. Yeah.
I really don't know either. And it just makes sense to me. And it's all about for me personally, that links to a new paradigm, because actually a new paradigm is a letting go of everything that's not working. So just a letting go of everything to therefore rise up into that space of creation of the things that are allowing. So by doing all of that, there's that space for that natural rise. And I also see that within education, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the timing of things, society, we've built on this 5-day schedule. Okay, children go to school for 5 days. They then go to work for 5 days. And what if all of that was flipped to a different paradigm where we could actually choose our time? And what I really love about the pandemic was that happened. Like so many people started to become entrepreneurs, and they just were living their passion and finding what their gifts are, that weren't just going to the same place every day. And then that would then be reflecting down onto the children. And I feel that is the shift that's coming. People are saying no to so many things. And I feel like that type of education is going to be popping up for our children, and that will become normalized in a way where it's not this 5-day treadmill where everything is on such a schedule. And it really does create spaciousness in the heart and space to breathe, just to simply be able to breathe and not have to worry about being somewhere. I'm terrible at showing up on time. I have my own time frame. And I was lucky in schools, because as a primary school teacher, I have one class the whole day, so I could kind of play with my time. If we didn't do one thing before, we could do it a bit later. I know it's different when you have separate classes, because it's then there's kind of this catch-up idea. But for me, I would just literally just be, okay, what are we going to do? And just kind of weave my day into how I wanted it to flow with the children based off what they needed. And maybe I was a rebel. I don't know.
Well, I think, first of all, you're my hero, because when I did sub in primary grades when I started out, And I realized that was not my demographic, you know, but because, you know, I like change, and, you know, I always say in my job as a high school teacher, no matter how good or bad it is, it's over in an hour and it's over in 9 months, you know. Everything's temporary. That's another Zen concept. But I think that the beauty part of what you do is what you said, is that there's a rhythm that you can adjust, and you can surf the room based on what's happening at the time. Now, what I've learned, and it's just that, you know, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, is I've been doing this so long, I've learned kind of how to do that within the 55-minute period over a week. When I started, we used to have to submit our weekly lesson plans, and now they're talking about like the whole year. And I'm like, okay, you know, that is not the new paradigm that we're after, right, Monique? But I called them my weekly fictions. Even as a young teacher, when I was trying to be respectful, in my head, I was like, this is a fiction, because after Monday, after that first day, they were wrong, because I saw what the students needed and I adapted, adjusted, and then what was on the paper for Tuesday was like out the window.
Totally.
So yeah, so you're right. You know, if you're tuned in to what's happening, I like to think that makes me a better teacher. But and in teachers that I admire, that's what they do. So, you know, yeah, I think that, you know, saying if it's Tuesday, we're on page 85. That's to me, that's not teaching.
It's meaningless.
One man's opinion. Yeah.
It's totally meaningless. It's irrelevant, and it's not innate. Like, I mean, yeah, it just makes no sense to me. And I never did lesson plans. I would just write my lesson plans after. Like, I just quickly just write what I did and just like, oh yeah, we did that. You know, because it just didn't feel right.
No, that's a great way to do it. That's document, but to document it and then have it say the next year and go, oh, that worked, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do that this year. Oh, this group, that is not going to work for them, but they're really going to love it. You know, I mean, you can go back and look at that document and surf that and use that as, and I think you froze up a little bit. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I froze up for that little little second. Sorry about that. I'm here in Uruguay in a little beach house, so it's
oh my gosh.
Yes. Sometimes the internet is not so great.
To this non-traveler, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I've been a traveler my whole life, actually. So, and I married somebody from Uruguay, and our baby speaks 2 languages, and so that's awesome. I'm here living as I've taught in many countries. I've taught in China, I've taught in Bali, and Uruguay, and Australia. So for me, it's it lights me up to be in different places and to help different people and things like that.
What a gift to your students to have that background.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel like I wanted to ask you something too. Like, so since writing your books and kind of making this kind of breakthrough within yourself, did you notice your students reflecting that back to you? Like, did you notice a change in them in some way? Like, but did they? Yeah.
I think so. I think it, like you said, it is contagious a little bit. The calmness, and I mean, I always I considered myself a pretty chill person. I mean, my daughters don't think so. They're like, you're always so wound up and anxious, you know, but that's because I probably care about them more than anything else in the entire world. So I want everything to go perfectly. But, you know, I think I do feel that one example of that is, I start with my 9th graders, I start every period with 10 minutes of silent reading, because I think nobody reads anymore. And they're not going to take the time to do it on their own. Adults don't even read, teachers don't even read, right? But I think it's such an important skill. I give them 10 minutes in the beginning of the class to read anything they want, because I think choice is really important too. And when I surveyed them on how it was going for them, I got my vocabulary is getting better. I've noticed I'm reading faster, and then wonderful things like I really loved my books. I wanted to keep reading, so I read it at home. I mean, like, holy cow, that's amazing. But what they said that you think that somebody who wrote a book called The Zen Teacher would have expected, and I didn't expect it, is they said things like, I really like the quiet. I really like the 10 minutes of stillness. I
Wow.
really like the fact that I can get my mind focused before we start the rest of class. And I thought, oh my goodness, what an amazing byproduct and bonus and extra benefit that I did not even see coming, and I should have, and I didn't. But that's one thing that I just thought was amazing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, that they're able to have that experience in their life. Maybe it's only the 10 minutes of the day that they have that quiet. You don't know,
I can
every
almost
family is
guarantee
different.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed my teaching changed as well. Like when I actually moved over to Bali, because I was in India, and I went to a special meditation center there where I was gifted awakening. So through this meditation practice. And so my whole energy body changed, and I was just really in this place of calm within my body. And so I noticed as soon as I went into the classroom, the children were just calm and they were smiling. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because before that in my classroom, I would have a lot of, children jumping around and things. And I'd be standing there like, okay, what do I do with all these children that are jumping around? And, and I noticed, because I was calmer, that they were calmer. And then when I came back to Australia and I went to some of those kind of schools where they had, different children from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, I noticed that it actually had worked with them as well. Like I'd walk in and they're like, hey, miss, you're so happy. Why are you so happy? What's going on? And then we'd have like the best day. So
yeah,
I was I really feel it's really powerful for everybody to be learning, even if it's like just a 5-minute thing a day you do before you sleep, or doing the tips that you've been saying, breaking them down, and just doing one of those 5 tips a day until it becomes an embodiment of you just become the practice, and it just doesn't even, you don't even need to do anything because you are it, so
right. And you're right there. I threw 5 of them at them all at once, but what I do, which is helpful too, is say, okay, if you're practicing, yes, you can practice one at a time, but also when you feel stressed out, you can look and go, okay, which one is it?
Totally.
Do I need silence? Do I need to declutter a little bit? Do I just need to slow down and take my time? And then you start to get a sense, and when you practice, you start to get more in tune with, well, which one do I need right now? And the other thing that you said that was amazing is, I always use as kind of a silly example, kind of as a little bit of humor, is I always say, you don't need to go, up to the top of a mountain and meditate in India, but you did that. And I always say, but then you also mentioned it only takes 5 minutes, because that's where I go with that. Is like, you don't need to do that, but you can only, all you need is 5 minutes, and it's 3 deep breaths at a red light when you're driving, or it's 5 minutes of silence before you go to bed, right? But you can also, thank you for proving that you can also go to a meditation center in India. That can also be one of the choices.
Yeah, totally. For me,
but it's both.
It was both. Like I started off doing what you're doing with the traffic lights, and like just taking pauses within myself and noticing my anxiety. Like, because I still have anxiety in my body as well. I don't have it anymore, but like I used to have this rush inside of myself. And so I would just start to notice it and do some of the things that you're saying, like pull in all of these different areas. And then I just started to actually decide to practice meditation, and I started to go regularly, and I just noticed massive changes within myself. I was feeling happy. I was able to have great concentration. A whole lot of things was happening in my life, and my life was just turning around for the better. And so that inspired me to keep going. And then that's why probably now I know I am living proof that I know that it's working. And I also know that it's working for our children. Like, we have thousands of books written about this. It's not something that I'm making up. Like, it's written in science, it's written in pedagogy, it's written there, and it's even written in the curriculum as mental health. But what we're talking about is actually using it for ourselves rather than it being a curriculum checkpoint, actually helping ourselves to help our children, right? That's how I see it.
Here's a little critique of the current paradigm. I loved how you made a distinction between what we really need to do and a curriculum checkpoint, because they're different.
Exactly. Totally different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so honored to have met you and to have had you on our podcast today, to be able to help everybody to know more about Zen practices they can use within the classroom, and to hear your stories and how it's changed you as a teacher.
Oh, yes.
And I feel like it's really inspiring for teachers out there that may be just still going into the regular classrooms, that haven't broken free into their own schools and their own way. They just want to continue on the path of what is there, but at least they know they can make changes. Like everybody, you can make a change at any moment, like for yourself, not even just for your students, but for yourself,
Right.
and watch the ripple effect, right?
100%. Very true.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning in to
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for tuning into a new paradigm of education. And I always like to finish off with Mahatma Gandhi's line of, be the change that you wish to see in this world.